everyone. It's Sunday once again. It's now 2 p.m. in the UK and 10 p.m. in Manila. But from next week, next week I think it's going to be 9 p.m. in Manila because I think clocks will go forward. We'll go forward from next week. But anyways, welcome to another episode of Ask the Drummer. This week is actually kind of unusual because I'm having a guitarist on Ask the Drummer, which is really, really strange. But anyways, not everybody knew that he's actually a drummer before becoming a guitarist in one of these bands. And he's not just a drummer, but he actually played in a couple of amazing bands, indie bands, like The Wedding Present and the Popguns, which I really love. I saw them live before, without him, of course, but yeah, they're amazing. So, so let's bring him in, fresh from Portugal, and Lewis. My dear friends, please welcome Shaun Charman. Yay!
Hiya.
Hiya, Shaun.
And Lewis in the same sentence.
Portugal and Lewis. Because you did the gig in Portugal last week.
Yeah.
And how was that? How
was absolutely amazing. There are these guys over there called Suspeitos, who are kind of a cooperative of music fans. And what they do is they bring over the bands that they want to see, and they treat them incredibly well. And they put on a great gig. And we played to between 200 and 250 people, and it was a really great gig. And but just they treated us really well. It was absolutely brilliant weekend. Porto's beautiful as well. It's a really lovely place.
Yeah.
So it was great.
And then last night you were in Lewis. You did a gig in Lewis as well. So how was that compared to Porto?
It wasn't quite the same. But it's not. I mean, it's nice. And actually, to be honest, Lewis is kind of a home gig for us because Lewis is only 10 miles outside of Brighton. It's a small, very historic place with a castle and bonkers fireworks celebrations. But it's it's a really lovely kind of historic town. But it meant that there were friends there as well. So no, it was great. It was a bit like a home gig, really, if you know what I mean, because it's close enough to Brighton that people came from Brighton. So yeah.
Well, of course, this band is now. That you're in is Jetstream Pony, which is like amazing. It's really I saw you at Preston Pop, but that wasn't the first time that I actually saw you, because I saw you at the 100 Club on Valentine's Day in 2020 supporting the Orchids.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I actually saw you. But one of the many reasons why I love Preston Pop Fest last year is that's when I found out that you're a drummer. Because I don't know if you remember this, because I saw you doing a sound check, and then when you got off, and I said, "Where's Hannes?" Because I remember Hannes from the London gig.
Yeah.
Because I asked a photo with him, and also I know Tony. Because
of course,
from the Popguns, and I had a photo with Tony before, so I know he's not the drummer of Jetstream Pony. So I asked you where Hannes was, and then you said, and then when I told you about Tony, and then you told me that, did you know that I'm the original drummer of the Popguns? And I was like, no way.
Yeah, I know. People get incestuous about it. Yeah, that's it. It is quite funny, really. But yeah, I mean, what the situation is, of course, and like you can imagine, is that Hannes he lives in Germany. Actually, what happened is that we had original drummer Sarah, and when she left, Hannes filled in with a couple of gigs because we played a couple of gigs with his other band, the BVs, who are based in Germany, and he really loved it. He really enjoyed it, and we really enjoyed playing with him. And so he basically carried on coming over ever since. So so he comes over, and but of course during the pandemic, that's not. Hang on, sorry, my son's just a moment.
It's fine.
The noise you can hear in the background is the rest of the family. Anyway, that's life here.
But, hello.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, Joey. Where is he? He's gone downstairs. I think there's a PlayStation down there, which is far more interesting. um, so anyway, but yeah. So I mean, Hannes is based in Augsburg, and as I say, we played gigs with the BVs, and but
Yeah.
when Hannes can't make it, Tony helps out because Tony's actually got a recording studio, and he actually, our most recent EP, the Misplaced Words EP, he was the engineer and the mixer and the
Oh,
producer
right. Yeah.
of that. So he helps us out with that. In fact, to be honest, I think he's just recently left the Popguns actually, but he was. I think
Oh,
that they're.
yeah.
Yeah, he has recently. It's unfortunate, really. Partly, it's he's got problems with his wrists. Like the carpal tunnel
Oh, yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah.
So he's working on it, and I think he might need to get that done, if you know what I mean. So, but he's all right to what he does is he carries on with us because we don't do much with him because obviously
Yeah.
Hannah's the main drummer and played with us in Portugal. But Tony's great, and he's a really good drummer as well. We're incredibly lucky, and it means
Yeah.
that Tony helps out when Hannah's can't come over, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
if Wikipedia is to believe it, apparently it says something that you're originally a bass player.
Yeah.
Is that so? From a bass player to a drummer, and then now a guitarist.
Yeah, I suppose I would tell the story of that. I mean, I was a bass player originally, and I kind of, grew up like learning bass lines by Joy Division and The Fall and people like that. And I went to, but I was in a band down here, and we used to kind of have a lot of fun. Really, we were kind of, some of the lyrics as well were quite funny. But we used to swap instruments. So although I was a bass player, I'd swapped and played the drums, so I could keep time. If you know what I mean, I could play the drums a little bit. And when I went to Leeds University, I was kind of looking for bands, and I tried a few as a bass player, and it didn't necessarily work out. Funnily enough, one of them I remember, trying out with a band that had Simon Smith, who was a drummer who came after me in the Wedding Present. So we actually played together while I was a bass player. But the what it was is that I was struggling to find bands, and I went into the University Union one day, and on the notice board there was the advert, and the advert said the Chameleons, Joseph K, The Fall, and I just thought, it's like basically had a load of bands that I liked on it, and I thought, well, I'll go and see them and see what happens, if you know what I mean. But because I could keep time, so it wasn't totally ridiculous. So we met up. And it turns out in the pub that we all liked exactly the kind of same sort of music, not just those bands, but we were avid listeners to John Peel. We liked other bands like, I don't know, Three Johns, Membranes, some of the, because in a way we like to come to the harder bands as well, if you know what I mean, from back then. And we all liked exactly the same sort of music. And we had this conversation, and then at the end, it was like, just one thing. I'm not really a drummer. So kind of like and they were a bit like, what? And I said, well, I can keep time, and we can give it a go, and let's see what happens. And yeah,
well,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well,
So
before we
I played this gig with them. I played this gig with them in a place called Allerton Bywater, which is a place just outside Leeds, and it went really well. And we got an encore as a support band, and we just went down really well. I was really nervous before we played, and equally nervous afterwards, but we gone down really well. And they just basically, they were happy to get going. And in the next 6 months, I basically learned how to play the drums. And one of the things is I don't play on the A side of Go Out and Get Them Boy because because I couldn't play. I didn't think I could play well enough. It was my decision. But what I did was I got the drummer of another band I was in to do it for me, and I played on the B side. And then between Go Out and Get Them Boy and Once More, I basically learned how to play, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about that. We've sort of like gone ahead because we haven't done the But before we do that, I just want to say hello to Trevor Palmer, who said hi, Anne and Shaun, and hi, Trevor, and Guy Keegan. Guy Keegan is the drummer of the Railway Children.
Oh,
so wow. So he said hi, Anna and Shaun. And Trevor said, not a question, but I saw Shaun with the Wedding Present a number of times between 1986 and 87 in London. 1986, 87 in London. First gig was the C86 ICA gig on Andrew and Fergie's wedding day. Whoa.
Yeah, it was on
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
end
and
of the Mall, from Buckingham Palace. Yeah, it was weird. That was
yeah.
kind of weird timing with Primal Scream. Yeah.
Oh, and also hello to Jessel Baltazar, who's in Canada. So
Mm-hmm.
say hello and hello, Sean. I did
Hello
not
there.
know of the wedding. I did not know the wedding present connection. So that's you did not everybody knew about. So like you being the drummer of the wedding present. But we'll talk about that
Hmm.
right now. So let me just do the sort of like the introduction now. So welcome to Ask the Drummer, episode 30. Episode 31 is all about you, Shaun Charman. And of course, we'll start from the place so like you were born. Because I asked you this earlier before we went live, because you're originally from Brighton.
Yeah, I'm from a
So
little village called Hassocks, which is just outside Brighton. Those of people who like the wedding present know that around the time there were these T-shirts that said Bramley, Middleton, Gateshead, Hassocks, and I was the Hassocks, which is just outside Brighton. So when I basically came back after leaving the wedding present. I went to Leeds University, which is where all the wedding present stuff happened. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what was it like? What was it like growing up in Brighton, especially so like the music scene when you're so like a
Yeah.
teenager?
Brighton didn't really have so much of a music scene back then. It did have some bands, but not very many, and not like now. I mean, it's quite a powerhouse now of kind of producing various bands and a sort of centre of the music scene. But back then, Brighton was a much tattier place, and there were some bands around. I mean, actually, it's funny, like nowadays, knowing Helen McCookery book, because I remember the Chefs. They were kind of one of the main bands from Brighton back then, and there were other bands like Peach and the Test Tube Babies and things like this, but Piranhas. But it was quite a small music scene, and people like the Chefs really stuck out. So it didn't really have a music scene, I would say, particularly. Well, it did, but it was a really small one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though, because when I looked at Wikipedia for notable people from Brighton, I mean the one that stuck to mind is like Fatboy Slim, but he's not really from Brighton, is he? I mean, isn't he from Hull? He now
No,
lives in
no,
Brighton.
no. He
He
went to
now
Hull
lives in Brighton.
University. No, he went to Hull University, I think. He's from round Croydon. He originally started supporting Crystal Palace, I think. I'll whisper quietly, but he's from near Croydon, and he went to Hull University, which is where the House Martin stuff. And then I think he's lived in Brighton for years and years and years now. But yeah, that's got a lot later that though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were growing up, what was there like a club that the young people used to go? Like say in Liverpool they had Eric's, or in Manchester they had the Hacienda or something. So was there sort of like a hub for teenagers to go to, like going to like gigs or
Not
clubs
really.
or
There was a venue called the Alhambra, which was quite well known for the kind of bands that I mentioned, but there wasn't really any. I mean, I used to go to gigs in Brighton, but they were at the kind of bigger venues, and there wasn't really like a scene in that. Well, apart from the Alhambra scene, which I wasn't really involved in, there was not really. I would say no, not really.
no. And was the Wedding Present your first band, or were you in another band before the Wedding Present?
I mentioned them earlier. I think off air is that I was in a local band of friends we were called the Paisley Brothers actually, and we used to swap instruments sometimes. This is what I was saying about
Oh yeah,
sticking
yeah,
up.
of course, yeah, yeah.
And
I was
but
gonna say that.
we were kind of a bit of a jokey band, and we liked Orange Juice and people like that. We
Yeah,
kind of already then. In fact, the first thing that I ever did was a cover version of Candy Skin by the Fire Engines, and so we like that kind of thing. But we kind of just put ourselves on at parties and stuff like that. It wasn't really, that kind of thing really.
so is it sort of like similar to, because a certain ratio they do that, they switch sort of like instruments. So Donald
Yeah, it's not
Johnson
like
was a
mysterious than
bass,
that.
so it's
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to put us on the same level. There's a certain ratio. Yeah. We were a bunch of friends in bedrooms, and, and yeah.
Well, the Wedding Present is known so like a Leeds band. So what brought you to Leeds?
Yeah, I went to university in Leeds, So, back in the day when it was kind of easier, I suppose, before fees, that, it was part of going to university was going to a different part of the country. So, I turned up at Leeds. And as I say, I was in a few sort of bands before the Wedding Present, really, in Leeds that didn't really necessarily get to gigging level, but bits and pieces. And as I said, when it came to the first Wedding Present single, I was playing in another band where I could ask the drummer to help us out. So a few bits and pieces, a few dabblings around in Leeds.
And so now we're going to talk about the Wedding Present, because you did mention that you saw this advert with all these names like the Chameleons, the Fall and things. And that's
I don't know if I can do this just very quickly. Is Jetstream Pony just turned up? Hang on, where are you? You see there? I don't know if you can see her.
Oh, all right. Oh my God! I was gonna actually ask you, where did the name Jetstream Pony come from? So it's the dog.
Yeah. She's a retired racing greyhound, and that was her racing. Right. Yeah.
Oh, hello there, hello Jetstream Pony.
She's looking very unimpressed, I have to say.
Well, I just want to say, my husband Aiden, he's just next door. He said that it's all looking and sounding great. He's my tech support, so that's good. That's good that he's saying that all looking and sounding good. And also, David Reynolds, he said, "Hi, Anne and Shaun. Saw Jetstream Pony a few years ago in Northwich at a charity gig.
Oh, yeah.
Great band." Yeah, so hello, David.
Right. And hi, Dave, as well, actually. Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
We're going to say Mark Edwards as well. Going to say hi to your friend. Were you saying? Is it Mick Edwards? Mark Edwards, the guy who's coming to Madrid. Oh, we talk about.
Oh no, it's Mike. It's Mike. Yeah,
Mike Edwards. Sorry.
Yeah, he is going to. I'm not sure if he's actually watching today, but I saw him yesterday, and I told him that you're going to be on. And it's funnily enough, he loves Jetstream Pony. He's really a big fan of Jetstream Pony. And he loves this album by the Wedding Present, George Best. He really loves this. But he didn't know that you were actually the drummer, which is really strange. Because, like, he's one of those people, like my two colleagues at King B, when it comes to music, it's just so, like, their knowledge is amazing. Neil Barker and Mike Edwards, they've got these sort of, like, you ask them about a band, and they just know it. Especially with Mike, it's all like indie bands.
Yeah.
With Neil, it's more sort of like pop music. Yeah, like everything about pop music. But Mike is more of the indie sort of like bands around. So yeah. But anyways, he's gonna go and see you in Madrid, so like in 2 weeks' time. So going back to seeing the advert, did it actually say it's for the Wedding Present?
Well, they were. I mean, the Wedding Present weren't anyone, so they wouldn't say that, because I mean, the Wedding Present were not a famous band, so it didn't say the name of the band because it wasn't really relevant, if you know what I mean. They'd had a few drummers before, but one of the things that I think is quite nice actually with David, as I said, because we're kind of friends nowadays, is that he's always said that he takes the start of the Wedding Present from when I joined. So they did play some gigs under that name before I joined, but I think he doesn't really count them, which I suppose is nice in a way. But yeah, but they weren't well known enough to put the name of the band on. So it just said The Fall, the Chameleons, Joseph K. I think there was another one, but I can't remember which one. But as I say, these were some of my favourite bands at the time, and all the other bands we liked. I mean, but in a way, when you're talking about clubs in Brighton, I would say that my musical upbringing was really around John Peel. It was listening to John Peel under the bedclothes. It was listening to, we all listened religiously to that program and to John Peel songs and stuff like that. So that was probably our scene, really. Yeah.
So did it actually say wanted drummer, or just looking for a drummer, or just those band names that actually?
It said looking for a drummer. I mean, I don't know why myself. I don't know why I went for it. I think I just thought I would go along and see, because the bands were so spot on. I thought I'd go along and see what they said and as I said, we'd swapped instruments in my first band, so I knew I could keep time. So I wasn't quite sure what they wanted really. Yeah.
Well, when you become a member of the Wedding Present, did you
Hmm.
actually go for drumming lessons, or did you just sort of like teach yourself sort of like how to play the
I
drums?
taught myself. Yeah, I taught
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
And one of the things I think is always quite funny, really, and it's probably a bit of a coincidence, but I was always playing as fast as I could, even in the first thing, because obviously I wasn't a great drummer, so I was always like, trying to play as fast as I could. And one of the things I've always said is that when the wedding present sped up, basically, and the wedding present sped up because I was always playing as fast as
Because
I could. No
yeah.
one ever told me to stop, but I just carried on going. You know what I mean? Carried on as I got better and better. I kind of like the drumming sped up, and in the end, and obviously, and David as well. At the beginning with the wedding present, there was a bit more of the Chameleons guitar because he went to school with the Chameleons, David Gedge, so he was quite embedded in their kind of culture. And the guitars are a bit more
All
jig,
right.
jig, 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 jig. But he always occasionally went into the jangle, jangle, jangle. And there was but I think because of like Postcard as well, and we all like Postcard, it was a bit of an open door. He went to the
Yeah.
jangle, and then I was speeding up as I learned how to play, and in a way, the whole organic sound of the wedding present just ended up happening almost by mistake, if you like. Not exactly by mistake, because I also remember David giving Peter a cassette, I think, of The Missionary by Joseph Kay about with guitars with that real ding 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 ding. But I think that with me learning to play the drums as we went and gradually speeding up as we went, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
kind of ended up being that signature sound, really, of the kind of how fast it was and the guitars going like that. But I
Well,
think some of it came from the fact that I was learning how to play, and as I,
you learn how to play the
yeah,
drums.
yeah,
This article that I was reading last night about you being a drummer, um, it says that your first ever gig as a drummer was on the 1st of March
yes,
1985. That was like 37 years ago, because that
yeah,
was all like March 2022.
yeah.
And it says that you never played drums in public ever
That's
before
true.
that. So
That's
that was
true.
your first one. And the funny thing is, you were supporting this band called, is it Dick Dimorphic?
Yep, yep. They were a goth band in Leeds. You have to remember in the time that
Yeah.
Leeds was a centre of goth. I mean, it was a place where the Sisters of Mercy came from and various other bands, Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry, and it was kind of yeah. So they were a kind of a local goth band, but no, they're good and they're very friendly. Yeah,
Yeah, I actually sort of like looked it up on YouTube and listened to one of the songs. Yeah, they're really good. But I just thought, what a name! It was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
it's a brilliant name.
And it was
So,
it was, you know, it was in a pub in the middle of nowhere. Allerton Bywater's got about like 100 people living in it. It's like a corner in the road in Yorkshire. We went
yeah.
out there, and as I say, but the gig went really well. It was really good. It was really good fun. Yeah.
So how was it? So like for you, like not being able, well, never played drums live in front of anybody, and then you got this sort of like gig. How was it? How was the first gig as a drummer for you?
I kind of had to be coaxed on really by David, because I think right up to the beginning I was saying I really don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. And in fact, I think David's done his comic book thing, and I think he puts that in there really, that he was trying to, reassure me, saying, "But we sound fine in practice. It's like it's sounding fine." But I was really quite nervous, and actually, I think that this whole thing about playing as fast as I could was because I was quite nervous as well. So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
easiest thing to do when you're nervous is to play fast. And so I did. And at the beginning, as I say, not so fast, later on faster, but it was all around the nerves. You know what I mean? I was really quite nervous when we went on. But afterwards, as I said, we got an encore as the support band, and went down really well. I mean, there wasn't loads of people there, but it was kind of, yeah, we went down really well with the people who were there, and it really helped. Probably it really helped for the next few gigs, which maybe weren't always as good as that one, because it kind of, yes, maybe I can do this, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it was
yeah,
good.
yeah. Were you
Yeah,
in other albums of the Wedding Presser, or is this the only one that you actually played drums on?
it
Is it just
it's that
George
one,
Best?
Tommy, which is the singles. So it was about the first four or
Yeah,
five singles were compiled onto Tommy, but that's the only full album. Yeah.
yeah. Because I know it's because I told you before that my King Bee colleague, this is actually like a really one of his favorite albums, and I think it's because he's a big Man United fan.
Uh,
Manchester United. It's got George Best in it, so it's like,
yeah, I
I think
didn't
that's
realize.
so
You know
funny.
what? I didn't realize until after the band. I think that David is a Man United fan because actually during that period, we weren't really so into football. I am now. I mean, I'm a big Brighton fan these days, but at the time, I don't. When David first talked about that as the name of the album, I think
Yeah,
it was more around flawed genius rather than he didn't really mention Man United. He said, you know, because of the character of George Best and the,
yeah,
you know what I mean. It was more to do with him as a personality, not to do with the Man United thing. I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't actually like the name at the beginning because Prefab Sprout had an album called Steve McQueen,
Steve.
and
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I remember when David first said it, I said, "Isn't it like Prefab Sprout, Steve McQueen?" But obviously I was wrong because it was inspired, but I didn't, you know. But as I say, I don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also found out that I've got two of your records that you jumped in, like this one,
Hmm.
which is Nobody's Twisting Your Arm. I got David Gedge to sign that one actually. So,
Okay.
and another thing that I found out is Amelia Fletcher of Swansea Sound. It was like the legend, that is Amelia
Yeah.
Fletcher actually sang backing vocals
Yeah.
on this. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just incredible that you're also like connected and you just didn't know about these things.
Yeah, well, I said she sang backing vocals with the Popguns as well. Actually, just you know, I suppose you play gigs with people, and you know, and yeah, and you know, we did a cover version of "Bye Bye Baby," the Bay City Rollers song for a compilation album. She sang backing vocals on that and came and sang it at a gig as well. So yeah, Amelia sang with both the Wedding Present and the Popguns. We used to play a lot of gigs, you know, back
Yeah,
then together. So yeah, yeah,
yeah. It's amazing. She's amazing. It's like,
yeah.
and of course now she's in Swansea Sound, so that I saw them in Levenstone, so like just a few days ago. But anyways, Trevor Palmer said that I was at college when George Best came out, and within a few weeks of its release, I had convinced most of my class to buy it. Wow. That's amazing. So, how long were you in the wedding present? So,
Three
what
years. It was 3 years in the
3
end.
years?
Yeah.
And what year did you leave the wedding
It
present?
was over Christmas, sort of at the end of 87, 88. I think Nobody's Twisting Your Arm came out at the beginning, in early 88. So I'd actually already left by then, but it was over, yeah, it was over Christmas. You know, things were coming to a little bit of a head. So yeah, it was around then. And it was quite, as I say, it was quite acrimonious at the time, to be honest, for a few reasons. I think if I look back on it now, some of it is because maybe it's that thing, that transitioning away from the Wedding Present not being anyone particularly to being more like David's band a little bit later on. And I think because I had a bit of an influence on things at the beginning, and then maybe I kind of lost sight a little bit about whose band it was a little bit.
Oh,
And a lot of other, and you know, I suppose that, yeah, as I say, sort of, yeah, some
yeah,
millies. And also, I think the other thing that I do say now, a bit more in hindsight, is that we played so many gigs. We played like 150 gigs, and then like 200 gigs the other year. If you think about the speed of the band
oh, yeah,
and the
yeah.
energy and stuff, I was knackered as well. I was really, I was kind of exhausted as well. So
Was it
because
just in the UK?
I've always played it, I don't play very relaxed style, if you know what I mean. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Was it just in the UK or is it also in Europe or
No, in Europe
just
as well. We went around
in
Europe a
Europe?
few times. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And did you go to America or other parts like Japan or Asia
No,
or?
I'm gutted that I missed the American stuff. In fact, I think 3 times we were told we were going to the States, and it never happened while I was in the band. Obviously, they toured a lot afterwards, but it's one of the things I'm a bit gutted about, actually, is having missed out on the US stuff. And obviously now, more
Okay.
recently, they've done a lot. You know, David goes around the world all the time now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, I mentioned earlier that he actually played in the Philippines. He played in Manila
Hmm.
because when they did this sort of like a Southeast Asian sort of like tour, a record shop in the Philippines so like invited them to come over. And I remember, I don't know if my best friend saw like watching, but he was there, and it was a really great gig. And I remember like talking to David Gedge when I saw him at Louder Than Words festival, about his Manila like gig.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's lucky. I know that there is quite a lot in the Far East now. So, yeah. Are you there, Anne? You've frozen. Hello?
Hello? Yeah, that's
Yeah, hi there. You froze on the screen there for a bit. I wasn't sure
yeah. I
whether...
think it's all like all doing these things. I was so like wondering, is it our internet connection? I think it was
It
the
might be,
Wi-Fi.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Maybe I need to
anyways,
go
yeah.
and get my son off the PlayStation.
But yeah, as I was saying, I always tell these people that David Gedge said that they were fed very well in the Philippines, which Filipinos are really known for, uh, feeding people. You
That's
go to a,
brilliant. What a great thing to be
I mean,
As I
you
said,
go
we
to
were
a
fed really well last weekend in Porto as well. It's great. Yeah.
I mean, if you get invited to a Filipino party, don't eat, because when you get there, oh my god, the spread that they'll have for you, it's like you get lots of food when you go to a Filipino party. So, so but anyways, yeah, Trevor said that I saw The Wedding Present 15 times in 2 years. Oh
Oh
wow,
wow.
yeah. So I think that was when you were playing drums, at The Wedding
Yeah,
Present.
yeah.
Yeah. So after that, you join the Popguns, and you're
Yeah.
also the original drummer of the Popguns as well.
Yeah. I came down. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't a dark time, because it was quite difficult, to be honest, after leaving the Wedding Present. Also because they were getting really big, and I came down and I got sort of a succession of not very pleasant jobs actually. But I definitely wanted to get back involved in a band. And actually, I remember my dad coming in and saying, "Someone from a band called the Penguins has rung," and that was the Popguns, obviously. Um, yeah.
So
So
how did you? Yeah, go on.
yeah, no. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I saw an advert for them as well, and I'm trying to remember what they said. It was, I don't think it was. Yeah, I can't remember what bands it had on it, but I remember thinking like, let's go and see how it works. Yeah, and again that they'd been like playing a few. In fact, they'd been playing a couple of gigs with the drum machine, I think. But yeah, it was kind of more or less from the start of the band. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So again, that was so like, you saw an advert and then you just saw like, applied for it, and then
Yeah.
they took you on as a drummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, Jessel in Canada, he said that on The Wedding Present and Friends James Bond tribute,
Hmm.
you did all the instruments on Her Majesty's Secret Service,
Yes.
and
Yes.
one of my favorite Bond song covers. And any plans on doing more solo original songs, maybe an EP or album? That's from Jessel.
Oh, thanks, Jessel. No, I don't think so, because in a way, Jetstream Pony, I, Beth and me write the songs. I write the music, and Beth writes the lyrics, and then she sends me kind of what we call fag packets of, as in cigarette packets of lyrics, and then I fit them to the music. So I do quite a lot of the music for Jetstream Pony anyway. So that kind of keeps me quite happy. And in fact, probably not on the Jetstream Pony album, I play the drums as well because of circumstances as well. So it's kind of I probably have enough of an outlet from Jetstream Pony about the solo stuff. Maybe one day. There's a bit of a story about that James Bond album, about that cover as well,
Yeah.
actually, because I hope she doesn't mind me telling it. But Beth, our singer, is not a massive fan of the James Bond films, and she thinks that they're quite sexist. And you know what I mean? She thinks that they're
Yeah.
not. And I do know what she means. And funnily enough, I think David knows what she means as well, because we've had that conversation. And she wasn't massively keen on doing it, to be honest. And So, but you know, David wanted to do it, and I think the music. I think whatever you think of the films, I think the music is iconic. You know, like what other film franchise has a kind of such an iconic musical style? Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the spaghetti westerns, but something really, you know. And so I wanted to do one, but obviously, if Beth wasn't going to do it, given her what a brilliant voice she has, you know, I've always liked OHMS. In fact, I like the film as well. I think it's one of the better James Bond films, as the music. So I did it myself, but it was really to get Beth out of having to do the James Bond thing because of the
Oh,
sex and everything. But then, of course, what happened is we went on tour with The Wedding Present because, as I say, you know, we get on fine these days, and but he asked her personally, and so you know, like, so she said she wanted to do it. She was happy to do it, and but we'd almost run out of the songs to do by that time because all the bands had chosen them. So all we had was like "Man with the Golden Gun," which has got about the worst most sexist lyrics out of all the songs. And so from not wanting to do it because of the sexism of the lyrics, Beth suddenly found herself having to sing "He's Got a Powerful Weapon" opening line. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of James Bond
No,
either. I mean, I've seen a
I totally
few.
see what she means. Yeah.
Yeah. But going back to the Popguns,
Yeah.
I've seen your post actually. So who's Princess Jenna?
Right. Not Jetstream Pony, who's gone. Tish, the manager of the Popguns, it's her daughter. So the drawing of the fish that was done by
Oh,
her.
I see this one
So
there.
Princess Jenna, yeah, did the drawing of the fish. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, right.
yeah.
And you played in that one. But is that the only? Did you play in their album as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the. Yeah, I play on Snog, which is the first Popguns album, and there's been a
Yeah.
bit of a symmetry with some, I think, because as well there's an album called Eugenie, which has got all the early singles on, and I play on all of that. So, the singles of Landslide, Waiting for the Winter, Someone You Love,
Yeah,
Put Me
yeah.
Through It. So I play on the early singles and the Snog album. Yeah.
All
So
right. And yeah, of course you did. You co-wrote some of the songs, or you wrote some of the songs of Popguns as
yeah,
well.
not many. I don't want to overstate that. I wrote the guitar. It was a funny thing with Someone You Love because I could always play the guitar, and at the sound check, I was playing this riff, and I thought nothing else about it. But I remember about like 4 or 5 months later, Simon turned up. Simon Pickles from the band turned up with Someone You Love, and he'd written it. And he said, "Do you recognise that?" And I said, "No, should I?" And he said, "Well, that was your riff that you were playing in the sound check." So the main kind of progression. So yeah, I did that one, and actually something similar with over your head, which was kind of. But that was a little bit more new about that one. But yeah, it was only
Yeah.
those two. It didn't happen a lot, and I think it was kind of typical of Simon. The first one, it was quite funny really because I didn't do it deliberately. It was just the way that
Yeah.
he remembered it. Yeah.
Because I didn't I didn't share this EP or 12-inch Crazy because it says here that drums is Mike. So I
That's
thought,
Wendy's
and
brother.
then
Yeah, that's Wendy's brother. It was
yeah,
it was a completely different kettle of fish when I left the Popguns in a way because it was quite it was very friendly. In fact, you know, after I told them I was leaving, I played a few gigs afterwards. And something
yeah,
that I didn't remember, but Simon tells me, is apparently on the last gig we played, I handed over to, I think it would have been to Mike for the encore. So I played the gig, and then we got an encore, and then I basically said, "And here's our new drummer," and he played the encore. So
all right,
so yeah, it was much, you know, as I say, it was the other thing as well. Actually, at the time of the pop, there was a couple of reasons I would say with the Popguns. I was actually slightly disappointed by the Slog album. It kind of, we had this really bizarre thing where the original version was recorded by Genesis P-Orridge. Now, just get your head around that a moment. The first Popguns album was recorded by Genesis P-Orridge from Psychic TV. But
yeah, yeah,
but it didn't come out that well, and we had to kind of redo it, which is what we did, and it was kind of
yeah,
cobbled together, and it came out okay. But I was slightly disappointed by it. And also the other thing is I mentioned about being exhausted with the Wedding
yeah,
Present
yeah,
crew.
yeah.
I kind of had an episode of ME, kind of like where I actually actually medically had a, I had 3 months off work, and I was kind of, I was again, I think I was exhausted because with the Popguns I had a job and I was doing it on the side, and I think I was just
Oh,
exhausted
yeah,
again. So
yeah,
yeah, so that's why I left them. But it meant that, you know what I mean, I carried on. It was a friendly breakup, if you know what I mean.
yeah. But I've noticed that there's actually like a long gap between sort of like leaving the Popguns and
Yeah.
doing another sort of like a musical thing. Because I don't know if this is correct though, but it's like what year did you leave the Popguns?
Well,
Is it like
1991. There was
90?
another 3 years. It was 3 years from the wedding with the wedding present. 3 years for the
Yeah,
Popguns. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then after that, according to this one is from Discogs now.
yeah, yeah.
you were you were in a band called Turbocat
Yeah,
and
that was with Kerry, who's the bass
with
player
Carrie of Jetstream
from
Pony. Yeah,
Jetstream Pony, and I was playing guitar, and we did a John Peel session actually, but we didn't, and we released a couple of 7-inch singles, but we didn't do loads of stuff. But Kerry's the singer, yeah, and actually there's a couple of songs we do in Jetstream Pony which are old Turbocat songs, and yeah, we played around we played the odd gig outside, but most of the gigs were around here, like local, I mean, to Brighton. And yeah, we played for like 2-3 years as well. Yeah, yeah. But as I say, I was guitar then. I'm afraid. Sorry.
yeah. So but then actually after Turbocat, you went back to sort of like being a drummer in a band called the Fireworks.
Yes, I noticed
So
that. So I remember when we were doing the preparation, you didn't really mention the Fireworks, but I think the Fireworks album is one of the best things I've ever done. I really love that album. It's a fantastic album, I think. Called Switch Me On, and yeah, but that's much more recent. That was 2014. So there was a gap when I didn't do anything at all. I'd just kind of given up music really. And actually, it's funny with Kerry, when I asked her if she'd be in Jetstream Pony, she'd already sold her bass, so she
oh,
had to go and buy another one. Yeah,
so so you went back to drumming in the Fireworks.
yeah.
Did you sort of like miss it because it's actually what you wanted to do is being a drummer, or
It's
so
what they
how did
needed.
yeah?
It's
So
what they
how did
needed.
you call?
Yeah,
Um,
what it was, the Fireworks were going already, and they'd done a single already. They'd done one single, a kind of 4-track EP, and a friend of mine called Isabel, a Spanish friend, she was playing in them as a bass player, and their drummer left or was leaving, and she obviously knew about my history from being a drummer, and she asked me if I wanted to play the drums. So I came along and played the drums for them for another like 3-4 years, and we played indie tracks a couple of times, and we played some gigs around and about. And as I say, I think the album was great. I don't think we were ever live quite as good, unfortunately, for a few reasons, but yeah, I think the album was great. We did one single called Runaround, which I think people should look up, because there's a really brilliant video for that as well. Yeah,
I'm definitely going to sort of like look that up. And
yeah.
is that where
Runaround on Fireworks. Look at
run around?
It's one of the best records I've ever been involved with. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll also like look it up on YouTube after this one. But is that where you met Beth Ozzy? Because I believe that she was also a member of the Fireworks.
She was later. What it was actually is that the Fireworks were well named in terms of the internal politics of the band. It was quite, there was quite a lot of, but the original co-singer Emma left. And so when she was leaving, Beth came in as the new singer. So Beth actually only did one single with the Fireworks at the end. Although, I mean, there was a year when we weren't really kind of telling people that she joined, which is madness really. But yeah, so Beth wasn't the drummer all the way through the Fireworks, but that's how we met. And also the Fireworks played gigs with the Luxembourg Signal, which is the best band in the US. Luxembourg
Yeah,
Signal,
yeah,
they're brilliant, the Luxembourg Signal. I don't know if
yeah.
you've
Well, yeah,
um,
well, Filipinos. There are so many Filipinos who love the Luxembourg signal.
yeah.
I've not actually saw like um first time I've heard of Beth Ozzy's name is from that band because
Hmm.
the Filipinos are sort of like posting their records and so like music and stuff. It was like, oh my god! It's like so when I found out that she's in Jetstream Pony, I was sort of
Mm.
like thinking, I've got to go and see it.
Yeah, no,
I've
I
got
mean,
to.
the thing about the Luxembourg signals, they don't play so many gigs because there's 7 of them for a start, and also, I mean, one of the reasons it works with Jetstream Pony is because the Luxembourg signal are Beth's band back in California, so that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know Beth lives in Croydon, so she does far more with us than she does with them, but because they're the other side of the Atlantic, obviously, and so she sings with them when she goes home, and when she when she sees when she sees them, they're kind of they're the other some of them are the other members of her band Aberdeen who were on Sarah, so they're kind of like people that she goes way back with. You know what I mean? So, but because they're over there and we're over here, and I think both bands kind of we both like each other as well. You know what I mean? And we have met.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There
Yeah,
isn't really.
I'm
Yeah,
sure she's aware of it, but the fans, her fans from the Philippines, they're just so like, I know that they're also like buying every single Beth Ozzy, so like it
we're going to
releases
quite a
out.
lot of money for that. Gonna cost me a fortune.
So after you had the fireworks, it just sort of like morphed into a Jetstream Pony, or
Yeah,
so how did that happen? Because this time now, this is your Jetstream Pony is actually your band, and you
kind of.
didn't. So as opposed to sort of like applying or auditioning, uh,
Hmm.
for the wedding present or the Popguns, but you actually formed Jetstream Pony with Beth Ozzy.
Yeah,
So can you just tell us so like
yeah.
how
What
did it
happened with
go?
that? Yeah, I wrote a song, one of the songs on the Fireworks album. Like most of the songs are written by Matthew, the main guy in the Fireworks. But I wrote one song, and there was another song and another EP. So a couple of songs I'd kind of written back when Emma was the singer of the Fireworks. But when Beth joined, I was still doing. I've always played the guitar and always played the bass, and I would done things, but only I'd never done anything with it. And but we did a couple of demos, and those demos were the first Jetstream Pony single, "Like You Less" and "Had Enough," and they were recorded on my iPad on GarageBand. I mean, literally, like kind of pressing play and record and running around the other side and playing the drums and then dubbing the bass on and dubbing the guitar on, and then Beth sang on the top of it. So it was done that way. But originally they were done with the intention of being fireworks songs, really. But what it was is that I think Matthew wanted to keep the band about his, it was his vision and his songs, really. And I had a conversation with him. It was quite frank, and it was basically that, I don't think, do your stuff, but it can't be the main thing, a main thing in the band. And so we kind of agreed that it was going to be something separate. So Jetstream Pony started before the fireworks finished as a kind of side project, if you like. But then the fireworks, who I said were always very well named, kind of came
Yeah.
to an end anyway. And so Jetstream Pony took over and became the main thing. And as I say, that first demo that we did, the GarageBand demo, a friend of Beth's in Germany called Kenji, who's been in loads of bands like Friedrich Sunlight and various other bands. He played them to a friend of his who runs a record label, Kleine Untergrund Schallplatten in Augsburg. And he basically wanted to release the demo as it was, like the GarageBand version. And I could never believe, actually, it got played on Six Music and stuff. And you're listening to this thing, and I'm thinking, but I recorded that on my iPad. But it to go down well. And then Jetstream Pony then became a band. I asked Kerry to join, and we turned into a band. And from that first single, we became a proper band. And as I say, the fireworks kind of faded out, and Jetstream Pony took over, really.
But did you play the drums on the earlier, so like singles or earlier songs of Jetstream Pony, or did you already
Yeah,
have
I played the drums on
Hannes?
the first single, and we had a drummer, Sarah, for a while. She plays on Self Destruct Reality. But then when she left just a couple of months before we did the album. So at the
Yes.
time, it was I ended up playing the drums on the album, and because we were looking for a drummer at the time, and then we played these gigs with Hannes. It worked really well, and now Hannes has been our drummer, and ever since Hannes was our drummer, he does the drums because I never really wanted Jetstream Pony to be a solo thing. So I do want to have a drummer that's not me. Do you know what I mean? So that's how
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But being a drummer though, do you sometimes feel like, oh no, you should do it like this, or do you just let Hannes do his thing, do his drumming thing, and you just play the guitar bits of it.
Yeah, it's funny because I do sometimes. I hand out the demos have sometimes got a lot of the parts on them already, including the drums. And I say, could you read it? Can you think of something different? But here it is roughly. Do something roughly like this. And there's basically a drum track already played. He's like sort of saying, But so I then sort of say to Hannes, play what you want and change it. And there was one example actually where on Misplaced Words where I left the click track on because I said, well, Hannes, you do your own drum part. And then he just played the click track. I was saying, no, I didn't want you to play the click track. The click track was there so that you could do your own thing. And he did, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's great. He's the world's nicest person. Actually, he's the equal world's nicest person with Tony. Tony's the other world's nicest person.
Well, drummers are very nice people, and they're very cool.
They are, in general, I found others, and they and actually one of the things, because one of my great, we talk about influence and stuff, but I've always been a really massive fan of The Fall, and I always really like the two drummers thing. And actually, Misplaced Words, two of the songs on that have got two drummers on them. One of them is Hannes and Me, and the which is Behind the Eyes, and there's another song, Courses for Obstacles, which is Hannes and Tony, and it's got the two drummers on. So yeah.
Right.
I love two drummers. I absolutely love two drummers. The sound of two drummers. Back 1983 with the classic Fall lineup with Carl Burns and Paul Hanley and Mark Smith stalking the stage, ranting as he did, kind of with the kind of tribal, the two drummers. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I need to get Paul Hanley on the show as well, because my friend Neil actually suggested it to me. So
you should. I mean, because he does a great podcast, the Oh Brother podcast about The Fall with Steve, who is the world's greatest ever bass player, obviously. It's a really good podcast. You should get him on here, really.
Yeah, because I had Funky Sai. I mean, Funky Sai also played in The Fall.
Yeah, so, he's good as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully someday. I mean, I need to sort of look him up on Facebook and send him a message and see if he'll say yes to it. Hopefully, but anyways, yeah. So you're doing a lot of gigs this summer, and I was looking at the post that you did recently, and I'm actually going to see you 3 times.
Oh, wow.
You're gonna get sick of me after, because I'm not going to the Madrid, and there's actually one called Under the Bridge.
The Bristol and London gigs. Yeah,
Bristol and London.
I was never on Sarah Records, so I don't know quite, but Beth obviously was. So yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was going to that one, but it's just that I've recently pre-ordered a copy of that Under the Bridge compilation, because it's got Jetstream Pony, it's got the All Kids and The Wake, and I thought, oh God, it's so good. I mean, if everybody's going to be so there at the gig, I would like to. It's just that it's Bristol and London also in April, and but anyways, I'm gonna see you in June because you're supporting The Wake. I didn't know this because I had a ticket for The Wake in, I think, what was it, 2020 when it was supposed to be?
Yeah, but this gig, I mean, all the gigs we're doing actually. Porto was 2 years late. Lewis was 2 years late. I think I said it. There was a poster on the wall in Lewis that they'd had one of the dates and been crossed out, and someone had written in with like a dot-tip pen what the revised.
Yeah.
You should have put the other dates on there. You could have had the first one crossed out, then the next one crossed out, crossed out, and the next one. And it's the same actually. That Wake gig, we were supposed to be supporting then as well in 2020. I can't wait for that because I've never seen The Wake. I used to really like them. Used to really like them from the Factory time actually.
Yeah, And, I've never seen them.
Quite a lot of the records. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. And then also you've got one. This is a newly added one in July, which is Middlewich Pop. Now I was talking to my colleague yesterday about this because I have no idea where Middlewich is, but apparently it's very near us.
You in Stockport?
Pardon? Yeah, I just so I found out it's actually near us because Mike said to me, you can get there, by car in half an hour. So if you go, because it's a Saturday, it's
Yeah.
on a Saturday that Middlewich Pop. So after work, just ask your husband, ask Aiden, so like take you to Middlewich. You'll get there for after, because I think it starts at 4 o'clock, isn't it? I mean, it's like an all dayer.
Yeah,
Does
it
it
is. I
start
don't
at
know
4?
actually, but I thought it is an all day, but I don't know what time it starts. I don't know what time we're on, for example. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a bit
I
of a
hope you're
trek.
not going to be. I hope you're not going to be on early though, because I don't finish work until 5. So hopefully, I'll get there before 6 o'clock. So hopefully, you'll be sort of like on a later
Actually,
time.
yeah, no, I lie. Actually, Kevin Birchall, who's the promoter, I think we're on at 7. I think we're on at
Oh,
7.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely going to see you there if you're on at 7. And then another one that I'm really looking forward to is Glasgow's Pop in
yeah.
um, in August, and you're going to be there as well because I think I think by that time you'll be like you again.
Never. But anyway, it's no, I mean that's fantastic actually, because I mentioned earlier on the part that Kenji Kitahama played in our history, like getting our demo to Kleine Untergrund Schallplatten, and Kenji has moved from Augsburg. He's actually from the US, but he's moved from Augsburg to Glasgow, and he's promoting that gig. So it's going to be brilliant, like meeting up with Kenji as well, and obviously the lineup
Yeah,
is fantastic. Actually, one of the things that's quite nice is that back in the wedding present day, we used to play a lot of gigs with the Close Lobsters, and it's quite funny them they're on the bill again. And
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
after all this time, we met up with them in Preston, although I didn't get to see them because they played the day before. But it's really lovely meeting up with them because we used to tour with them, so it was yeah, it's
yeah,
quite
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah, the lineup for Glasgow's Pop was just so like incredible. I'm really
yeah,
so like looking forward to it because,
yeah.
of course, it's got the orchids there as well because I love the orchids and the June Brides. That's I've not seen them before, but a friend of mine, one of my friends in the Philippines, actually got me into the June Brides and
Mm.
giving me sort of like records by them, and I thought, oh wow, this is going to be good. So that's another band that I'm really looking forward to seeing. So,
That takes me back to so the June Brides take me back to the first London gig the wedding present ever played in 1985 was with the June Brides in the ambulance station. That goes right back to kind of C86 time. So what you said, how long ago was that? 1985? How many
yeah,
years?
your first gig
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
37 years ago.
37
Again,
years from the London gig, yeah.
yeah. Well, Trevor said that he saw Wedding Present and Close Lobsters together a few times. So
Mm.
yeah, great gigs, he said. So any like new things coming apart from the gigs? Are you going to be doing like new material and going to be new releases from Jetstream Pony?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, I've got quite a few half-baked, half-baked ideas. I've got a few I've got quite a lot of riffs knocking around, if you know what I mean. But I haven't got new songs at the moment. Actually, I need to remind Beth about some more lyrics. If she could send me some lyrics, that'd be nice. She's listening. Any more lyrics? Um, I write some lyrics, but I'm not very good at it. It's quite a struggle. And she writes really good ones, so it's kind of I'm hoping for some more lyrics from her. But yeah, I mean there isn't really anything. There's nothing kind of solid at the moment, apart from the fact that that want to do like to. We're doing a tour in Germany in October, no, in November. And I was
Oh, okay,
hoping to
okay.
have something by then, maybe even just a single or something. But we'll see what happens.
But how is it now with producing or releasing or recording an album? Do you do it like online, like some bands do now, and because of COVID and things that you don't actually like meet up?
Yeah,
Is that how you do it as well? Is it just like pass
yeah, it's
on?
how we've had to do
Yeah.
it. I mean, because in the last 2 years, I mean, I would say with Misplaced Words, Hannah sent over the drum tracks from Germany. So
Yeah.
he wasn't with us but he he recorded them over there and sent them over. It's funny actually because when we started Jetstream Pony, I was asking, and I've got a friend who's got a really good band called Chorus Girl. and asking her about how they did it. And basically, you record the drums and the vocals in the studio, and the guitars you can record at home, because then you can kind of put effects on them in the studio. And that's kind of how we ended up doing it, actually, with Misplaced Words. Some of it's recorded at home and some of it's recorded in the studio, and then the whole thing is kind of put together in the studio by Tony. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture. I think drums sound better recorded in the studio, because the drum sound is often kind of the bedrock of the actual sound of the record itself. So if you've got really good sounding drums, everything else kind of takes care of itself. So you record the drums in the studio, but then the guitars can be recorded at home a bit more. Yeah.
Right. Dubia Frederick from California. He said, "A friendly hello to Anne and Shaun from the Bay Area, California. Hope all is well." He's got a question for you. What is your favorite part of a drum set that you like to
Did I like to hear it?
Hold on, sorry. Sorry, okay. Sorry about that. What is your favorite part of a drum set that you like to hit or play?
Let me think. Do I prefer hitting the tom-tom, or do I prefer... Thanks for the good. No, thanks for the question. I think I would say that it's because I like simple drums. Really, I like a good crisp drummer, and actually this is why. And I know that, and I'm not stereotyping. I'm just saying examples. I think there've always been a lot of really great female drummers, because sometimes the drummers like Lindy Morrison with Go-Betweens, for example, and Janet Weiss from does the Slater Kinney stuff or whatever, but they play. They have a very simple, crisp style, and I think that's what I like. You know what I mean? And so I would say it's probably snare drum, bass drum, hi-hat combination, but because I kind of like things to be crisp and simple. Do you know what I mean? I think. Yeah.
Have you heard of lines? Like T-shirt lines?
Lines, yeah.
Layla O'Sullivan, she's absolutely amazing. I mean, every time I saw them recently at Hebden Bridge, and she's just incredible as a drummer, and I love Lila. So, but anyways, yeah. So can I ask you, do you have a preference at all? Do you sort of like would you like to be sort of like just a drummer, say a singing drummer, or are you okay with a singer guitarist? So,
a singing drummer. Well, it goes back to Blythe Power. I remember it had a singing drummer. Actually, singing and drumming can be quite difficult, because I used to sing backing vocals in the wedding present sometimes, back to Felicity even, and things like that. And I did used to sing, but my kind of voice could be quite wobbly if you're trying to sing and play the drums, because you're with all this energy, and then you've got this like kind of noise coming out. So it can be quite difficult. I mean, hats off to people who can do it. I'm going to give you the answer you don't want, probably, which is I like being a guitarist. I like doing all of them. I like playing the bass too, to be honest. I mean, because I go back to people like The Fall and various. I love bass. Yeah. I mean, I really like music that's driven by bass lines as well. So I like. I mean, in a way, I quite like the fact that I can do the three, if you know what I mean.
Of course,
yeah.
So, so we won't be seeing you playing the drums in the near future, then. Or will we? Maybe someday.
No, it depends. It depends. As I said, I don't mind. I mean, I had that kind of slightly moderately terrifying thing I did a couple of years ago with Ukrainians when they went on tour, and they kind of, I came on to play like stuff from the first Ukrainians Peel session. And actually last time at David Gedge's At the Edge of the Sea festival, David and me both came on and played like a couple of the songs from that. And that was a bit terrifying, because the style of it is very different from my drumming style. So it's more, and also I'm quite out of practice, because I played the drums regularly. So, but I suppose I played the drums at that. That was quite, I don't know. Never say never, I guess. But, we shall see. Yeah, we shall see. My main thing is I want a Jetstream Pony gig with two drummers. Except I just need to persuade the two of them to get on stage at the same time.
Oh, Tony and Hannes.
Tony and Hannes together. Yeah.
I don't know if the Wedding Present's actually sort of like done like an anniversary George Best tour.
They have done loads of anniversary George Best things. I've seen George Best played by at least 3 different lineups of the Wedding Present where David is the only person in common. So I've seen George Best played by loads of different versions of the band. The first time was weird, but nowadays, and I think David said that he's not going to do it again anyway with George Best. So I don't think so. I mean, there's not been any suggestion that we would get back together in that way. I think it worked. The way that David does it nowadays, it works for him. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have. Do you have any drumming heroes at all?
Yeah, actually, I do. I mean, I mentioned about that fall period, that Purple Patch period,
fall.
and Paul Hanley. Simon Walsicross is a good drummer as well. But and I would say, I mean, you had him on Stephen Morris. I've always thought was like probably the best drummer.
Yeah.
I've always liked the idea. I mean, because I think he makes the drums an instrument. You know what I mean? It's kind of. He's really thinking about how it's going to contribute and is really imaginative, if you know what I mean, around it. And so he was always a drumming hero, actually. I mean, there's loads, really. Yeah, going back to kind of some of the older bands. I'm quite a big fan of early Gang of Four, and I really like the drums on that as well. Burnham, because it's that simplicity. It's like crisp and simple, and kind of I quite like angular post-punk stuff. So I that crisp simplicity. I just like
So I don't know whether I should ask you if you have any drumming advice. If you have any advice, so you'd probably say become a guitarist or something.
Yeah, don't do it. It's quite a lot like hard work. Sometimes when I'm loading all the drums up and I'm thinking like, remind me why I volunteered to do this again. It's like the guitarist going out there like talking to people and having a drink and stuff, and as the drummer you're at the back there like unloading stuff and you're just thinking like, remind me why I do this. And actually, back in the Wedding Present day, in the dressing room afterwards, you used to have like me down one end of the room, like just like that. Do you know what I mean? Steam coming off my. Actually, it's funny. I think some of the later Wedding Present drummers obviously sussed out how to do it without using the energy that I had, but because I was so cack-handed and never learned properly, I filled in all of the, all of the beats and stuff. I did it in the most energy inefficient way that you could possibly do it. But steam coming off, and then David would be down the other end, like steam coming off him as well because of all of the.
It was
kids were just like wandering around, just like they just got out of the bath. It was just I think I'm going to talk to this fan here and have a drink here, and the two of us were just dead afterwards. But yeah. So my tip would be don't do it probably, but I don't know. No, it's as I said, I quite like doing whatever. I quite like varying it a bit actually. To be honest, I like it sometimes. I do like it sometimes.
Well, you mentioned about like talking to fans. So how do you feel towards like I'm talking as like me as a fan. Are you okay with like coming up to you after the gig and saying, "Oh, can I have a photograph and can I have can you sign this, please?" and stuff. I mean, not just you, but also like the other members, like Beth and Carrie and Hannes. Are they okay with it? Are they okay? I mean, I know now that we've got like COVID thing. That you're more careful.
Yeah, as long as you're kind of there. At the moment, yeah. Again, because I said, I think it might have been before we went on air, but I said at the moment, the funny thing about COVID as well is however bad or not badly you get it, the one thing we've got is actually trying not to catch it before a gig because, we played in Porto and the week before we were going to Porto, I was kind of terrified if any of the four of us got it then we wouldn't be going because none of us would be able to get on the plane, and obviously we're going to Madrid in 2 weeks' time, so we got to try and avoid getting COVID in that week before the gig because any one of us gets it and we can't go in theory, if you know what I mean. So but in general I think that we're quite social really. We're fine, and I do appreciate it, to be honest. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Like last night, there's a couple of guys came down from London I was speaking to. I don't know if I heard this right. There was one guy who said he came from Swansea, from the gig. And it's kind of like, that's a long way from Lewis. And, thanks for, thank you, if you know what I mean. So we're not going to be kind of, arrogant about it or anything, because, the people coming along to the gig is what makes the gig fun. And the gig, you don't want to play to an empty room. So, yeah, of course, they're happy to talk to people. I really appreciate people coming. It's brilliant. And if we want to talk and stuff like that, then of course, really, because it's what makes the whole, if you like, I guess. Yeah.
And Preston Pop, that was just so, like, I think for me it's one of the top 10 gigs that I've ever been to, because I really loved, because I just love the whole weekend, the 3 days, and being a fan. It's quite easy to talk to everybody, and I think and because of what happened, like with the virus and everything, that for most bands and artists, it was like their first gig. So
it was a bit, it was a bit COVID city though, wasn't it? Quite a few people caught COVID at that, I think. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I think I was lucky, because I was sort of telling my husband, I don't know what it is, because it's like, even now, going to gigs, and then people will sort of message me and say, "Oh, I've tested positive. You should." And then I was like, I don't seem to touch wood. I don't seem to get it. Which I'm quite, I'm really lucky, but I think
it was quite social though, because all the band, as I said, it's people meeting up with the Close Lobsters, and I think some of the bands knew each other, and I think it was quite a social environment, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, well, hopefully, everything is going, like I mentioned to you earlier before we went live, that my colleague is actually worried, because apparently there's another rise, and there's another strain of the virus, and he's thinking that hopefully the Madrid Pop Fest will go ahead this time, because that was actually it was in March, I think. Was it in March of 2020? It was supposed to happen, and they were supposed to go there, but then we had this lockdown and stuff. So he's really looking forward to it. He's just fingers crossed, that he finally get there 2 years later. So
well, we were supposed to play. We were on that bill 2 years ago, and kind of hope. I haven't heard that it's not happening. I mean, from our point of view, as I said, it's going to be a little bit of being a hermit for a week before, to hope they don't catch anything. But I haven't heard it's not happening. I mean, fingers crossed, because
Yeah, I think it's just because he said it in the news that the numbers are rising again, that there's got a lot of people catching, this a new strain. But I don't know. Hopefully, I'm sure he will go ahead. So, and please, I don't know if he's listening. Maybe he's not watching at the moment, but please do say hello to him. It's not do a shout out for Mike Edwards, because I'm sure he's gonna love it.
A shout out for Mike Edwards.
Oh my God. When you get to Madrid, so
I see what you mean. Actually, you mean from the stage, kind of shout.
Yeah. So when they go and watch you. So.
Well, you need to speak to Beth, really, to be honest. But
yeah. So, any other message for your fans in the Philippines? Because I know that, like I said to you, the Filipinos do love Beth. And for all the bands.
So you want a message from me for Beth's fans in the Philippines?
Well, Jetstream Pony. Well, Jetstream Pony as well. Do you have any message for all Jetstream Pony?
No, it'd be great to play there. So it would be great to play there sometime, to be honest. No, it'd be really, you know what I mean? It'd be really great to play gigs in places like that. Be a great place to go. So I suppose that would be the message, really. Yeah, thank if you like us, thanks, and it'd be great sometime to play.
I'm sure you'd love it there, because they will feed you well.
I'll just say that after lockdown, there's nothing that I don't need to be fed well. I really so don't need to be fed well. I need to be fed badly at the moment.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Jetstream Pony soon. Well, it's going to be in June in London,
Mm,
supporting the wake. So, but have a great gig in Madrid.
thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much for saying yes to us, the drummer. I know you're not drumming, you're not drummer anymore, but I'm really glad that you said yes and that you told me that you're the drummer of the Popguns. So, and then finding out that you're actually sort of like the drummer of the wedding present as well. So, thank you so much,
No,
and
pleasure.
then see you soon.
Thanks
Enjoy
for
the rest
asking.
of your weekend. See you again. Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye.
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 Bye. Oh my God. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. That's just unusual. I mean, I do love Jetstream Pony, but of course, being a fan of drummers, I really like the idea that he was actually the drummer of the wedding present and the Popguns. So, anyways, thank you very much to Shaun Charman. Please do keep an eye out for next week's guest announcement post. It's going to be another sort of like indie band, and this time it's an indie band from Ireland. So it's going to be great. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Love music, love life, and always do love drummers, and in Sean's case, love guitarists as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.